evening, listeners. Wherever you are, however you're listening, welcome to the Last Light Frequency. It's hard to say whether it's morning, afternoon, or night. Time feels strange now, doesn't it? But here, time doesn't matter. All that matters is this moment, this connection, this fragile thread tying us together across the abyss. Have you noticed it yet? The sky. It's darker than it's ever been before. Not just here, but everywhere. The stars, those ancient guardians of the night, are disappearing. One by one, their light is vanishing, as though the universe itself is exhaling its final breath. What we're witnessing, dear listeners, isn't just a natural phenomenon. It's something far more catastrophic. The stars are dying, and with them, the very essence of what makes us human is unraveling. We've always looked up, haven't we? For as long as we've had eyes to see, we've gazed at the stars. They've guided us through oceans, inspired our stories, and reminded us of our place in an infinite cosmos. They've been our constant, unchanging companions. Until now. Now, they're flickering out, leaving behind a darkness so profound, it's hard to believe there was ever light at all. It started quietly, almost imperceptibly, a few faint stars dimming in distant galaxies. Astronomers noticed, but dismissed it as anomalies. After all, stars die all the time. It's part of the natural order, a spectacular supernova, a black hole swallowing the remains. But this is different. Entire constellations have vanished, galaxies swallowed by a void that defies explanation. The great North Star, Polaris, guiding travelers for millennia, is gone. Sirius, the brightest jewel of our night skies, extinguished. Even Betelgeuse, which once teased us with the promise of a supernova, has vanished without so much as a whisper. Imagine this. You step outside on a clear night, expecting the familiar twinkle of stars above, but instead, you're greeted by a vast empty void. It's as if the heavens have been erased, leaving nothing but an oppressive black canvas. For centuries, we've woven myths about the stars, given them names, stories, gods. They've been our compass, our hope, our poetry. And now they're becoming our greatest fear. How did we get here? That's the question, isn't it? Scientists have theories, of course. Theories that range from the plausible to the utterly terrifying. Some say it's a chain reaction, a domino effect of stellar deaths spreading across the cosmos. Others whisper of forces beyond our comprehension, forces that could be erasing the universe as we know it. And then there are those who believe this is the natural end of all things, the universe collapsing in on itself, returning to the void from which it was born. Whatever the cause, one thing is clear. This isn't just a cosmic event. It's a reckoning. The implications for Earth are staggering. Our planet's delicate balance depends on the stars more than we realize. They anchor us not just spiritually but scientifically. Without starlight, ecosystems falter. Without their gravitational influence, even our solar system could destabilize. And without the hope they provide, humanity's spirit is beginning to fracture. Already, reports are coming in from around the globe. Fear, chaos, desperation. People are abandoning cities, fleeing to the countryside in search of clearer skies that no longer exist. Governments are scrambling to maintain order, but how do you govern a population staring down the end of everything they've ever known? And then, there's the personal toll. The loss of stars is more than a scientific crisis. It's an existential one. We've always looked to the stars for answers, for meaning. They've been our storytellers, our dream keepers. Think of all the moments in history when a single star changed everything. The Star of Bethlehem guiding the Magi, Halley's Comet inspiring both awe and dread, the constellations mapping the skies for explorers and wanderers alike. To lose them is to lose a part of ourselves, a part we might never get back. So where does that leave us? What can we do in the face of such overwhelming darkness? That's the question I'll be exploring with you tonight. Together, we'll delve into the science, the stories, and the human spirit that refuses to be extinguished. We'll hear from experts who are racing against time to understand this phenomenon, from survivors adapting to a world without starlight, and from listeners like you who are finding ways to endure. After all, as long as we're here, as long as this frequency holds, there's still hope, isn't there? I want you to close your eyes for a moment and imagine the last time you truly saw the stars. Not just a glance, but a deep, lingering gaze. Remember their brilliance, their mystery, their promise of infinity. Hold on to that memory because memories might be all we have left. Yet, even in this darkness, I believe there's something worth fighting for. The stars may be dying, but humanity is still here. And as long as we're here, we have a chance to rewrite the ending. Stay tuned, listeners. This is only the beginning. We've just scratched the surface of a story that could reshape everything we know about our place in the cosmos. Hold on to your questions, your fears, your hopes, because together we're not just witnessing history, we're living it. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, there's still light waiting for us out there. Listeners, let us journey back to the beginning, not of the universe, but of the chaos that brought us here. The story of how it all began is as much a tale of science as it is a chronicle of humanity's hubris. To understand where we stand today, we must first unravel the mysteries of the stars themselves, those luminous beacons that have guided, inspired, and awed us for millennia. Stars, in their majestic brilliance, are far from eternal. They are born, they live, and they die, following a cycle dictated by the laws of physics. A star's fate depends largely on its size. Smaller stars, like our own sun, burn steadily for billions of years before quietly dimming into white dwarfs, a shadow of their former selves. Larger stars, however, live fast and die spectacularly. When their nuclear fuel runs out, their cores collapse under immense gravity, triggering a supernova, a violent explosion that outshines entire galaxies for a brief moment. In the aftermath, these giants leave behind black holes or neutron stars, cosmic remnants of their fiery demise. For billions of years, this process has been the heartbeat of the universe. Stars are born from clouds of gas and dust, live their luminous lives, and die, paving the way for new generations. It is a cycle as old as time itself, but something broke that cycle. Something began to devour the very fabric of this cosmic order. At first it was subtle. A few stars in distant galaxies dimmed earlier than expected. Astronomers noted the anomalies, but they were dismissed as statistical outliers. Curiosities, not catastrophes. Then came the cascade. Entire clusters of stars began to vanish. No supernovae, no black holes, no debris fields. Just nothing. It was as if the stars were being erased from existence, leaving behind a chilling void. This was unprecedented. Every scientific model, every cosmological theory failed to explain what was happening. The stars were dying en masse, and the universe's light was being snuffed out. Agencies like NASA, ISRO, and the European Space Agency scrambled to make sense of the unfolding disaster. Telescopes around the globe captured images of once vibrant galaxies now cloaked in darkness. Papers were published, urgent conferences convened. Some scientists speculated about a cosmic chain reaction, a ripple effect set off by the collapse of a distant supermassive star. Others whispered of unknown forces, perhaps even external entities, capable of destabilizing the very fabric of the cosmos. Warnings were issued. Reports highlighted the potential long-term impacts on Earth's delicate equilibrium. Without starlight, the intricate dance of celestial mechanics could falter. Ecosystems dependent on natural rhythms might collapse. But the warnings, as so often happens, fell on deaf ears. Humanity was preoccupied with its own squabbles, its own trivial pursuits. After all, the stars had always been there. Why would they ever disappear? The tipping point came one clear night when Polaris, the North Star, faded from view. For millennia, Polaris had been a steadfast guide for travelers, a symbol of constancy in an ever-changing world. Its sudden absence sent shockwaves through both the scientific community and the general public. People began to notice. News outlets ran dramatic headlines. Social media exploded with theories ranging from alien invasions to divine punishment. And then Sirius vanished. The brightest star in our night sky, the jewel of countless myths and legends, was simply gone. There was no warning, no explosion, no trace. Just an empty patch of sky where it once shone. The loss of Sirius marked a turning point. The panic that had simmered beneath the surface boiled over into outright chaos. Scientists worked tirelessly to understand the phenomenon, but answers were elusive. Theories multiplied, each more terrifying than the last. Was this a natural cycle of cosmic extinction? A previously unknown phase of universal entropy? Or something more sinister? An external force capable of unmaking the stars? The data offered no clarity, only more questions. Governments, slow to react as always, scrambled to address the crisis. Emergency meetings were held, resources diverted to research efforts. Space agencies proposed ambitious missions to study the phenomenon up close, but these efforts were hampered by bureaucratic red tape and a lack of global coordination. Politicians issued vague assurances, promising solutions they did not have. The truth was painfully clear. Humanity was unprepared for a crisis of this magnitude. As the stars continued to vanish, the world descended into fear and uncertainty. Cities were gripped by unease. Economies wavered as people began to question the future. Religious leaders called for prayers and repentance, framing the event as a sign of divine displeasure. Conspiracy theories thrived in the absence of concrete answers. Some claimed that governments were hiding the truth, that the stars were being harvested by advanced alien civilizations. Others pointed to experiments at particle accelerators, suggesting that humanity had inadvertently triggered the end of the universe. Amidst the chaos, a question emerged, haunting in its simplicity. Did we doom ourselves by not listening earlier? Could this catastrophe have been prevented if we had heeded the warnings of scientists, if we had taken the anomalies seriously, instead of dismissing them as curiosities? Hindsight, as they say, is cruel, and in this case, it offers no solace. But let's not forget the human side of this story. Imagine being an astronomer, spending your life studying the stars, only to watch them vanish before your eyes. Imagine the frustration of knowing something is deeply wrong, but being powerless to stop it. Imagine the despair of looking up at the night sky and seeing only darkness where there was once light. These are not abstract concepts. They are real, raw emotions felt by people around the globe. And you, listeners, where were you when you first noticed the stars dimming? Did you brush it off as light pollution, a trick of the eye? Or did you feel that pang of unease, that primal instinct warning you that something was amiss? Would you have acted differently if you'd known what was coming? These are the questions that linger, the questions that may never have answers. The story of how it all began is not just about the science of stellar death. It is about the fragility of human existence, the arrogance of believing that we are immune to cosmic forces, and the resilience of a species that refuses to surrender to the darkness. This is only the beginning, dear listeners. The stars may be fading, but our story is far from over. Stay with me as we delve deeper into this unprecedented chapter of human history. Together, we will face the void and search for answers, no matter how elusive they may be. Listeners, as the stars began to disappear and the world plunged into an unprecedented crisis, the reactions of nations became as much a part of the story as the vanishing light above. Governments scrambled to respond, but their efforts were marked by a mix of desperation, innovation, and, sadly, dysfunction. Let's unravel how the major players on the global stage reacted to this celestial catastrophe. and how their actions or inactions reshaped the world. The United States was among the first to issue emergency broadcasts as news of the disappearing stars gripped the nation. NASA, already on edge from years of budget cuts and bureaucratic constraints, found itself thrust into the spotlight. The agency launched a series of missions, hastily planned and executed to study the phenomenon. One such mission, the ambitious Artemis Horizon, aimed to send a probe beyond the edges of the Milky Way to gather data. The launch was celebrated with national pride, only for the mission to fail spectacularly when the probe lost communication within weeks. The public's hope, briefly kindled, was extinguished as quickly as the stars themselves. Amidst the chaos, the White House issued a series of executive orders. One mandated the construction of underground facilities designed to house critical infrastructure and select groups of people. Dubbed Project Sanctuary, the initiative faced immediate backlash. Who would decide who got to survive in these sanctuaries? Protests erupted nationwide, with citizens demanding transparency and equal access. Meanwhile, FEMA rolled out contingency plans to manage food shortages as the disruption of ecosystems began to affect agricultural yields. Yet, for all its efforts, the United States' response was marred by infighting, resource mismanagement, and growing public unrest. Halfway across the globe, India's ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, approached the crisis with a blend of pragmatism and innovation, recognizing the importance of artificial light to sustain agriculture and daily life. ISRO announced the Surya Initiative, a project aimed at deploying a network of solar mirrors in orbit to reflect sunlight onto Earth's surface. The project, ambitious in scope, became a beacon of hope for millions. Teams of engineers and scientists worked tirelessly, racing against time to launch the first set of mirrors. At the same time, India's grassroots efforts highlighted the resilience of its people. Communities pooled resources, sharing food and creating localized power grids. However, tensions rose as the government prioritized funding for ISRO over other critical sectors, leading to protests and accusations of favoritism. Despite these challenges, the Surya Initiative succeeded in deploying its first solar mirror, casting light onto areas plunged into perpetual twilight. The project's success became a rare moment of triumph in a world increasingly consumed by despair. China, meanwhile, took a more secretive and authoritarian approach. The government's initial response was to clamp down on information, tightly controlling what its citizens could know about the crisis. Rumors swirled about classified experiments aimed at reigniting stars or harvesting energy from black holes. These whispers, though unverified, painted a picture of a nation willing to push ethical and scientific boundaries to secure its survival. Internally, China faced its own struggles. Provinces began hoarding resources, leading to tensions between local governments and Beijing. Reports of forced labor in star-related projects leaked to the international press, sparking outrage and sanctions from other countries. Yet, China also demonstrated remarkable technological prowess. The nation's scientists unveiled an experimental fusion reactor capable of generating unprecedented levels of energy. The reactor, dubbed Stellar Core, offered a glimmer of hope, though many feared the potential consequences of such untested technology. The European Union, often seen as a beacon of collaboration, struggled to present a unified front. Member states bickered over resource allocation and policy direction. Warnings from leading scientists in Germany and France were ignored amidst political infighting. Some countries, like Sweden and Denmark, pushed for green energy solutions to counteract the loss of starlight, while others, like Italy and Greece, demanded immediate financial aid to address economic collapse. The resulting gridlock rendered the EU's response largely ineffective, exacerbating existing fractures within the Union. Amidst this dysfunction, individual nations took matters into their own hands. Germany repurposed its advanced solar technology to create large-scale artificial greenhouses, preserving its agricultural output. Meanwhile, France proposed the Lumina Accord, a global pact to share technological advancements and resources. Although the proposal garnered international attention, it was ultimately undermined by mistrust and competing national interests. The crisis didn't just expose the vulnerabilities of individual nations, it also reshaped global diplomacy. Alliances crumbled as countries prioritized their own survival. Long-standing partnerships, like NATO, weakened under the strain of resource wars and conflicting priorities. In Africa, emerging economies like Nigeria and South Africa faced immense pressure as wealthier nations sought to exploit their natural resources. The continent became a battleground for proxy wars, with foreign powers vying for control over critical minerals needed for survival technologies. Resource wars erupted in various parts of the world. Access to oil, rare earth metals, and even fresh water became matters of life and death. In South America, Venezuela's vast oil reserves made it a target for intervention by multiple nations. The Amazon, already under threat from deforestation, became a contested zone as nations sought to exploit its resources to sustain their populations. The Middle East, long a hotspot for geopolitical tensions, descended into chaos as rival factions fought over dwindling supplies of energy and food. And yet, amidst the turmoil, moments of cooperation emerged. The United Nations, though weakened, managed to convene a historic summit, bringing together representatives from over 100 countries. The summit's goal was simple: to coordinate a global response to the crisis. While the meeting was fraught with disagreements, it resulted in the establishment of the Global Resilience Initiative, a fund aimed at supporting vulnerable nations. Though far from perfect, the initiative provided a lifeline to countries on the brink of collapse. Listeners, as we reflect on the global response to this unprecedented crisis, one thing becomes clear. The stars may have bound us together, but their absence has revealed the fractures in our world. The question now is whether humanity can overcome its divisions to face the darkness as one. Or will we, like the stars themselves, fade into the void? Listeners, if the disappearance of stars brought fear and chaos to the skies, its impact on Earth's economy was no less catastrophic. Picture a global system, finely balanced like a house of cards, trembling as the foundational lights of our universe began to vanish. The result? A cascade of financial upheavals that reshaped the world overnight. It began with the stock markets. The first to fall was New York's iconic Wall Street. Reports of vanishing stars triggered unprecedented sell-offs as investors panicked over the unknown. Stocks plummeted, wiping out trillions in value in mere hours. The ripple effect spread across the globe. Tokyo, London, Mumbai, no market was spared. One by one, indices tumbled like dominoes. The financial institutions that had withstood wars and recessions crumbled under the weight of uncertainty. Cryptocurrencies, long viewed with skepticism by traditionalists, suddenly became the unlikely heroes. As faith in governments and banks eroded, people turned to decentralized systems, driving Bitcoin and Ethereum to record highs. Mining operations, previously criticized for their environmental impact, boomed in this new reality. Ironically, the dimming of the stars eliminated light pollution, giving crypto miners an unexpected advantage. One could almost laugh at the irony if the stakes weren't so dire. But it wasn't just markets and currencies. Trade, the lifeblood of the global economy, came to a standstill. With the loss of celestial navigation and disrupted satellite systems, shipping routes became unreliable. Ports across the world closed their doors as exporters and importers alike grappled with logistical nightmares. Essential goods, food, medicine, fuel, stalled in warehouses, unable to reach those who needed them most. And when trade froze, so did international relations. Agreements crumbled as nations turned inward, hoarding resources for their own survival. Personal stories of financial ruin poured in from every corner of the globe. A listener from Tokyo shared how they had invested their life savings in a company that promised to develop starlight-based energy. It seemed so promising, they wrote. Now I have nothing. My family is surviving on instant noodles and candlelight. Another listener from California described how they lost their home when their employer shut down, unable to cope with the economic downturn. We're living in an RV now, they said. It's strange. The world feels bigger and smaller at the same time. Humor, as it often does in dark times, became a coping mechanism. Well, at least the crypto farms aren't bothering the neighbors with light pollution anymore. One listener quipped. Others joked about how the lack of starlight made it easier to appreciate urban skylines. No stars, no problem. At least my city's neon signs are still shining bright, wrote another. Beneath the humor, however, lay a deep sense of loss and uncertainty. For businesses, the fallout was brutal. Tourism, already reeling from years of environmental strain, collapsed completely. Destinations famous for their stargazing, like Iceland and the Atacama Desert, lost their allure. Airlines grounded fleets as international travel dried up. Even industries that seemed untouchable, like technology and entertainment, suffered as consumer spending plummeted. People prioritized survival over luxury, leading to a seismic shift in demand. Governments attempted to mitigate the damage with stimulus packages and relief funds. Central banks slashed interest rates to near zero levels. But these measures were little more than band-aids on a gaping wound. Inflation soared as goods became scarce. Black markets flourished, with essentials like fuel and clean water fetching exorbitant prices. In some regions, barter systems emerged as people traded skills and services to get by. The disparity between the haves and the have-nots widened dramatically. Wealthy individuals and corporations fortified themselves in isolated sanctuaries, hoarding resources and technology. Meanwhile, the majority struggled to adapt to a world where scarcity was the new norm. Protests erupted worldwide as people demanded accountability from leaders who seemed increasingly detached from reality. One of the most striking impacts was on education. Universities shut their doors as funding dried up, and schools transitioned to makeshift community learning centers. Parents juggled teaching their children with managing their own survival. A listener from Brazil shared how they turned their small bookstore into an informal classroom. We teach what we can, they wrote. It's not perfect, but it keeps the kids busy and hopeful. Healthcare systems, already strained in many parts of the world, reached breaking points. Hospitals struggled to operate with dwindling resources and erratic power supplies. Medical professionals worked around the clock, often without pay, driven by a sense of duty. In some regions, traditional medicine saw a resurgence as people sought affordable and accessible alternatives. Communities turned to healers and herbal remedies, blending ancient practices with modern needs. Technology, once humanity's beacon of progress, became both a savior and a source of despair. Innovations emerged rapidly, driven by necessity. Engineers developed solar-powered devices to combat energy shortages, while startups focused on sustainable agriculture and water purification. At the same time, cybercrime surged as hackers exploited the chaos. Digital scams preyed on the desperate, promising everything from miracle cures to fake investment opportunities. The internet, once a tool for connection, became a battleground for survival. Despite the hardships, there were moments of resilience that reminded us of our collective strength. In Italy, a small town turned its abandoned factories into vertical farms, growing enough food to sustain the entire community. In South Korea, engineers repurposed idle manufacturing plants to produce affordable solar panels, distributing them to rural areas. These acts of ingenuity and solidarity became beacons of hope. in an otherwise bleak landscape. The cultural impact of the economic collapse was profound. Art, music, and literature became outlets for expression and coping. A listener from New York described how their neighborhood held weekly poetry readings by candlelight. It's not much, they wrote, but it reminds us that we're not alone. Street art flourished, with murals depicting stars and galaxies reclaiming urban spaces. These creative endeavors, though small, offered solace to communities grappling with loss. Listeners, as we navigate this new economic landscape, the questions we must ask ourselves are daunting. How do we rebuild trust in a shattered system? How do we ensure equity in a world where the gap between rich and poor has become a chasm? And perhaps most hauntingly, how do we prepare for a future where the stars, once symbols of hope and guidance, are no longer there to light our way? The road ahead is uncertain, but if history has taught us anything, it's that humanity has an incredible capacity to adapt and endure. Even in the face of cosmic darkness, we find ways to kindle our own light. Stay tuned. This story is far from over, and together we will continue to seek answers. Listeners, as the darkness became our new normal, humanity's survival instincts kicked in. Across the globe, individuals and families began preparing for the worst, adapting to a world without the comfort of starlight. Their stories reveal resilience, ingenuity, and the lengths to which we'll go to preserve life as we know it. Take, for example, a family in rural Canada. Faced with the sudden chill brought on by a dimming sky, they transformed their modest farm into a self-sustaining haven. They stockpiled firewood, canned food, and built an underground storage unit insulated with hay and clay to keep perishables from freezing. We didn't have a choice, they explained. The nights were so cold, and we realized early on that relying on outside resources wasn't an option anymore. Their ingenuity didn't stop there. Using old solar panels and salvaged batteries, they created a small power grid to run essentials like lights and a water pump. In urban areas, survival looked different. A listener from Tokyo shared how their apartment building banded together to pool resources. They established a community kitchen, cooked meals in bulk, and rationed supplies to ensure everyone had enough to get by. At first, we were scared, they said, but then we realized that together, we could do more than any of us could alone. The building's rooftop became a makeshift greenhouse, where residents grew vegetables under UV lights powered by portable generators. For others, survival meant digging deep, literally. In regions like Scandinavia and Siberia, people turned to underground bunkers. Originally built during the Cold War, these shelters were repurposed as long-term living spaces. A Norwegian scientist described her experience moving her entire family into a bunker. We brought in supplies for a year, she said. Food, water, medical kits, even board games to keep the kids occupied. It's not ideal, but it's safe. She admitted the psychological toll was immense, but regular video calls with other bunker dwellers provided a sense of community and connection. These survival stories often carried a mix of humor and heartbreak. One listener joked, "The good news? You won't need sunscreen for a while. The bad news? You might freeze trying to find any supplies." Another recounted an incident where their attempt to grow potatoes in an indoor garden turned into a science experiment gone wrong. Let's just say we learned the hard way that too much fertilizer can be a bad thing, they said, laughing despite the hardship. For some, adapting to the new normal wasn't just about physical survival. It was about preserving mental health. A listener from Italy described how their family began holding nightly storytelling sessions by candlelight. We'd take turns sharing memories or making up tales about a world where the stars still shone, they said. It became our way of holding on to hope. Preparation wasn't always practical or successful, but it was often creative. A community in Arizona repurposed an abandoned shopping mall into a survival hub. Each store became a resource station, one for food distribution, another for first aid, and yet another for childcare. The central courtyard, once bustling with shoppers, now housed rows of tents and makeshift beds. It's not glamorous, admitted one organizer, but it's working, for now. Some turned to technology to bridge the gaps left by the crisis. A software engineer from Bangalore developed an app to connect people with surplus supplies to those in need. It's like a barter system, he explained. If you have extra rice but need batteries, the app matches you with someone who can trade. The app quickly gained traction, becoming a vital tool in several communities. These stories of survival often came with hard-earned lessons. One of the most repeated tips from listeners was the importance of rationing. Don't underestimate how quickly you can run out of essentials, warned a teacher from Chicago. We started tracking every bite of food, every drop of water. It's tedious, but it's the only way we've managed to stretch our supplies. Another recurring theme was adaptability. A farmer in Kenya shared how he transitioned from growing cash crops like coffee to cultivating hardy vegetables that could thrive with minimal sunlight. You can't hold on to what worked before, he said. You have to embrace change, no matter how uncomfortable it is. Reflecting on my own preparations, I'll admit they've been a mix of practical and sentimental. I've stocked up on canned goods, batteries, and a portable heater, but I've also kept a collection of my favorite books and a small radio. In the darkness, these small comforts remind me of who I am, of the life I'm trying to hold on to. And of course, I keep this broadcast going. It's as much for me as it is for you, dear listeners. Dark humor became a surprising ally in these times. One listener quipped, "If you can't laugh about running out of toilet paper in the middle of the apocalypse, you're not going to make it." Another shared how their family created a survival bingo game to lighten the mood. Every time someone says unprecedented times or resilience, we mark it off, they said. It's silly, but it helps. Listeners, these stories are a testament to our capacity for creativity and courage. They show that even when faced with the unimaginable, we find ways to endure. Whether it's through resourcefulness, humor, or sheer determination, humanity continues to fight for its place in the universe. As we move forward, remember that survival isn't just about stockpiles and strategies. It's about connection. It's about holding on to hope, even when the skies are empty. And it's about remembering that no matter how dark it gets, we're never truly alone. Stay tuned, listeners. Our journey is far from over. Listeners, as the stars vanished and darkness became our new reality, the search for understanding intensified. Scientists, researchers, and thought leaders stepped into the spotlight, offering insights that were as enlightening as they were chilling. Let's delve into what the experts have to say about this unprecedented phenomenon and what it means for our future. Dr. Patel from ISRO, a renowned astrophysicist, described the event with a gravity that sent shivers down my spine. This is the closest we've come to witnessing the death of a universe. The stars aren't just lights in the sky, they're the engines of existence. Their collapse disrupts everything we know. Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. If the stars are the engines, what happens when the machinery of the cosmos grinds to a halt? The potential long-term effects of this cosmic calamity are staggering. Without starlight, ecosystems are already beginning to falter. Scientists have noted that nocturnal species, reliant on the faint glow of the night sky, are losing their natural rhythms. Migratory patterns are disrupted as animals struggle to navigate without their celestial guides. Crops that depend on predictable light cycles are showing signs of stress, leading to reduced yields and threatening global food security. Dr. Ewan Carter, a biologist from Cambridge, speculated on humanity's ability to adapt. "We're resilient," he said. "History shows that humans can survive the unthinkable, but the question is, at what cost? How much are we willing to sacrifice to ensure our survival?" His team has been studying the possibility of genetically engineering plants to thrive in low light conditions, a daunting yet necessary undertaking. While the physical ramifications are alarming, the psychological toll of living without starlight may be even more profound. Dr. Hana Youssef, a clinical psychologist, explained, "The human psyche is deeply connected to cycles, day and night, light and dark. Without stars, without that sense of continuity, we're adrift. Time itself feels meaningless." This disconnection from the natural order has led to a spike in mental health crises worldwide. Reports of depression, anxiety, and even existential despair have surged. People are grieving, Dr. Youssef continued, not just for the stars, but for what they represented: hope, guidance, something bigger than ourselves. Therapy sessions have shifted from addressing individual concerns to grappling with collective trauma, a world grieving the loss of its cosmic compass. One expert's warning lingers in my mind: this could be the beginning of humanity's end, or its greatest test. That was Dr. Klaus Reinhardt, a theoretical physicist from Munich, whose research into dark matter has taken on new urgency. "If the phenomenon is driven by forces we don't understand," he said, "we may be facing something that rewrites the rules of physics. Our survival will depend on how quickly we can adapt our understanding." Amidst the uncertainty, some scientists hold out hope for a breakthrough. Dr. Patel's team at ISRO is exploring the possibility of reigniting stars, though the technology to achieve such a feat is still theoretical. "If we can stabilize a star in its dying stages, we might be able to reverse the process," she explained. "It's a long shot, but in times like these, even the faintest hope matters." Speculation also swirls around the cause of the phenomenon. While some point to natural cosmic cycles, others believe an external force may be at play. Dr. Reinhardt's research suggests the possibility of a previously undetected form of energy, or matter, interfering with stellar processes. "It's as if something is siphoning energy from the stars," he noted. If that's true, understanding its source could be the key to stopping it. Listeners, imagine the implications of such a discovery. Could it be an ancient force, dormant until now? Or perhaps an unintended consequence of humanity's own actions? A ripple effect from experiments conducted without understanding their full scope? The answers, if they come, will not only reshape our understanding of the universe, but also force us to confront our role within it. In the face of these unknowns, experts emphasize the importance of resilience and community. Dr. Youssef spoke passionately about the need for collective coping mechanisms. "Humans are social creatures," she said. "We find strength in each other. Building connections, sharing stories, and supporting one another will be crucial as we navigate this darkness. As we look ahead, one thing is clear: the journey will be long and fraught with challenges. But if the experts agree on anything, it's that humanity's capacity for ingenuity and perseverance has yet to be fully tested. Whether this crisis marks the end or a new beginning depends not just on the stars, but on us." Stay tuned, listeners. The story is far from over, and the next chapter may hold the answers we've been seeking. Listeners, in the depths of despair, when humanity had nearly resigned itself to an endless night, something remarkable happened. Amid the void that stretched endlessly across the heavens, a signal emerged. Faint, distant, and tantalizingly persistent. It was a flicker of light in the metaphorical and literal darkness, sparking a wave of hope and controversy that would define this chapter of our story. The signal was first detected by a team of astronomers in Chile, working with one of the last operational observatories. They were monitoring a sector of the sky that had long been silent, more out of habit than expectation. Then, amidst the static and emptiness, a faint rhythmic beep broke through. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but undeniably real. "We thought it was interference at first," said Dr. Ana Morales, the lead scientist on the project. "But when we triangulated the source, It became clear that this was no accident. The signal was coming from a galaxy billions of light years away, a galaxy that, by all accounts, should no longer exist. The news spread like wildfire, igniting debates in every corner of the globe. What was this signal? Could it be a message from another civilization? A natural phenomenon we had yet to understand? Or perhaps, as some feared, a trap, a siren call luring humanity to its doom. Governments, scientists, and civilians alike were divided. But one thing was certain: the signal demanded a response. Resources were already stretched thin, but the potential importance of the discovery prompted swift action. NASA, ISRO, and ESA joined forces to launch the Beacon mission, a collaborative effort to investigate the source of the signal. The mission's objectives were ambitious: to send an unmanned probe equipped with advanced sensors and communication arrays capable of decoding the mysterious transmission. The probe, named Lumina, represented humanity's best hope for answers. But not everyone agreed that the mission was worth the cost. Critics argued that the resources allocated to Lumina could have been used to address the immediate needs of Earth: food shortages, energy crises, and collapsing infrastructure. "We're gambling our survival on a faint beep from the void," said one prominent economist. "What if it's nothing? Or worse, what if it's something that destroys us?" Supporters of the mission countered with an equally compelling argument. "If we stop seeking answers," said Dr. Patel from ISRO, "then we've already lost. The signal could be the key to understanding what's happening to the stars and to us." As the probe was prepared for launch, humanity's attention turned skyward. People gathered in parks, rooftops, and open fields to watch the event unfold. For the first time in months, there was a sense of unity, a shared anticipation, a collective breath held in suspense. The launch itself was flawless. Lumina ascended through the atmosphere, its trail of light briefly illuminating the night. Cheers erupted around the world, though they were tinged with nervous energy. The journey ahead would take years, and there was no guarantee of success. Still, for the first time in what felt like forever, humanity had something to look forward to. As the weeks turned into months, the probe's progress became a global obsession. Updates were broadcast regularly, with scientists sharing data and speculating about the signal's nature. The rhythmic beeps, now clearer thanks to Lumina's proximity, were eerily consistent. Some described them as musical, others as mechanical. Every new revelation sparked fresh debates and theories. Then something extraordinary happened. As Lumina approached its target, the signal's pattern changed. What had been a steady rhythm morphed into a complex sequence of tones and intervals. To some, it sounded like language. To others, it was pure chaos. But one thing was clear: the signal was responding to Lumina's presence. "It's as if it knows we're here," Dr. Morales said during a live broadcast. Her voice was a mix of awe and trepidation. "Whatever is out there, it's aware of us." This revelation sent shockwaves through humanity. Could this be first contact? Was the signal an invitation or a warning? Theories ranged from the optimistic, a benevolent civilization reaching out, to the catastrophic, an advanced species marking humanity as prey. Public opinion was divided, and the stakes had never been higher. Questions flooded the airwaves, and I'll pose them to you now, dear listeners. Could this signal be the key to survival, a beacon leading us to salvation, or is it a final trap, the culmination of our hubris in believing we are alone in the universe? If you were in charge, would you continue the mission or pull back before it's too late? As we await Lumina's next transmission, the world holds its breath. The signal's origin remains a mystery, but its impact is undeniable. For the first time since the stars began to fade, there is a sense of purpose, of direction. Whether that direction leads to salvation or destruction remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: humanity's journey through the darkness has reached a turning point. Stay tuned, listeners. The story isn't over yet. Listeners, as we draw this chapter to a close, let's take a moment to reflect on where we are and who we are. The universe around us is unraveling, its vast expanse growing darker with each passing moment. Yet here we are, fragile beings on a pale blue dot, holding on to hope, to each other, and to the unyielding will to survive. The fragility of life has never been clearer. The stars, those ancient sentinels of the night, have always reminded us of our insignificance and our connection to the cosmos. Their light traveled for eons to reach us, crossing unimaginable distances, and now, as they fade, so too does a part of our collective identity. We've always looked up for answers, for inspiration, for dreams. The loss of that guidance is a wound that cuts deeply. It's a loss of not just beauty, but of the constancy that grounded us. A reminder that even the most enduring elements of our universe can change. Yet, amidst the grief and uncertainty, humanity's resilience shines. We are a species defined not by the challenges we face, but by how we rise to meet them. Across the globe, people have adapted, innovated, and united in ways that remind us of our boundless ingenuity. Communities have transformed into sanctuaries. Families have become fortresses of love and support. And even in the darkest nights, we found ways to create light, literal and metaphorical. Think back to the stories we've shared. The family in Canada turning their farm into a haven, the community in Tokyo pooling resources, the scientists daring to send a probe into the unknown. These moments, these acts of courage and creativity remind us that survival isn't just about enduring, it's about finding meaning, even when the universe seems devoid of it. In these stories, we see humanity at its best, finding beauty in brokenness and strength in struggle. The emotional toll of this crisis is immeasurable. We've lost more than starlight. We've lost a sense of permanence, of certainty. Anxiety, despair, and grief have become constant companions. Yet, within this shared pain lies a profound truth. We are not alone. In every corner of the world, people are feeling the same loss, facing the same fears, and in that shared experience, there is strength. When we reach out to one another, when we share our stories and our burdens, we remind ourselves that we're in this together. Resilience takes many forms. It's the engineer designing solar-powered tools for communities without electricity. It's the teacher turning their home into a classroom. It's the artist painting galaxies on walls to remind us of what we've lost. These acts, however small they may seem, are defiant. They say, we will not be extinguished. We will find ways to thrive, even in the face of cosmic indifference. Resilience is also found in the mundane. A parent teaching their child how to grow food, a neighbor sharing firewood with another, a stranger offering a kind word. These moments are lifelines, threads that weave a tapestry of survival and hope. As I speak to you now, dear listeners, I'm reminded of the power of connection. This broadcast, this voice on the airwaves, is a lifeline, not just for you, but for me too. Together, we've navigated the loss of the stars, the chaos of collapsing systems, and the fragile hope of a distant signal. Together, we faced the void and refused to let it consume us. In sharing these stories and reflecting on our journey, we've built something remarkable, a community bound by hope, and determination. Even as the universe dims, a single voice on the airwaves reminds us we're still here, and we're still trying. That voice isn't just mine. It's yours. It's ours. It's the collective cry of humanity saying, we matter. Our stories, our struggles, our triumphs, they matter. Each time we choose to act, to care, to create, we affirm that our existence is meaningful, even in the shadow of cosmic despair. As the darkness deepened, I received a letter from a listener in Greece. They wrote about sitting on the steps of an ancient amphitheater, staring at the starless sky, and feeling an overwhelming sense of loss. But then, they heard a child laugh. That sound, they said, reminded them of the resilience of life, the spark that refuses to be extinguished. It's moments like these that show us what we're fighting for, the beauty of the human spirit, the connection that binds us across time and space. The road ahead will be challenging. The questions we face are daunting. How do we rebuild in the absence of light? How do we preserve our humanity in a world reshaped by loss? The answers aren't clear, but the process of seeking them is where hope lies. Every small step forward, every act of kindness and courage is a declaration that we are not defined by the darkness around us, but by the light within us. The universe has always been vast and mysterious, filled with wonders and terrors beyond our comprehension. The fading of the stars is a reminder of our place in this grand tapestry. Small, yes, but significant. We may be fragile, but we are also fierce. We may stumble, but we rise again. And in the face of the unknown, we persist. As I sit here speaking to you, I'm surrounded by reminders of what we've lost and what we've gained. A photograph of a starry night that no longer exists. A notebook filled with stories you've shared. A candle flickering softly, its light a fragile yet stubborn presence. These symbols are a testament to our journey, to the resilience and creativity that define us. And so, dear listeners, I leave you with this. Keep your eyes on the skies, if you can still see them. For even in the absence of stars, there is light within us. And as long as we hold on to that light, we'll find our way. This broadcast may fade, the universe may grow darker, but the connections we've forged and the hope we've kindled will endure. Stay strong, stay connected, and most importantly, stay hopeful. Until next time, if you enjoyed this broadcast, please like and share the video. Your support means the world to us, and we'd love to hear your suggestions and feedback. Leave a comment below and let us know your thoughts. We rely on your encouragement to continue bringing these stories to you. Don't forget to subscribe, as we're bringing new radio broadcasts daily. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you tomorrow with another story.